May 31st, 2024, what we're going to refer to as Pride Eve, I participated in a group hike and guided meditation in the Presidio National Forest here in San Francisco with a group of fellow queers. It was an event put on specifically for queers because I live in San Francisco and I'm very lucky to have events that are safe spaces like that. And I've done a few events with this group. They're really awesome. And one of the themes of our time together was, what kind of ancestor do you want to be? And as you know, as I've shared a couple times, like that's like right up my alley. And I think it's something that we don't ask ourselves enough as a society, and today in this modern age, we don't ask ourselves about the legacy that we're going to leave afterwards. We get too caught up in the here and now that we lose sight of what happens after we're gone. So it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day, and you'll see how this relates, especially because let me throw in that we are like less than 2 weeks from the final FaceTime. And what I can say about this event, which I will go into a little more detail how the day went, and it is important enough to merit its own episode part in the story. But what I will say is that this event, I 1,000,000% credit with giving me the strength necessary to make it through the next 10 days. Again, you will see what I mean by that. 10, 11 days. So the day began, we met at kind of like in the middle, because the Presidio's huge. So we met in this part that, again, it doesn't really matter, but by some natural springs. And then the day began kind of like with a little hike. And I just remember that our guide pointed out all these different plants and that like told us their medicinal values or their like kind of purpose values. I remember one is one that you can use kind of like as soap. There's another one that you can use kind of like antiseptic and like kind of as a band-aid if you need. It was actually really cool and really educational. It was such a good time. And then there was a moment where we like all sat in this, we like made our way to this really enclosed and really hidden little space that was perfect for us to like sit down and do our little meditation. At least one person had a dog with them, which as you know is also my jam. And so that was like really cool and really awesome. Here was the part that kind of, I guess, threw me off or whatever, but without detracting too much from this, again, it absolutely relates, but I'm trying to think how I can kind of summarize this. So I've described two parts of our time together, which, you know, queer guided meditation and group hike on Pride Eve, right? So the third kind of group activity that we did is that we were split up into groups amongst ourselves, and it was like kind of random. We were like each assigned like a card, and then which was a plant, and then we found like each other's plants, and then we were posed this question that I mentioned earlier: what kind of ancestor do you want to be? And okay, so again, I didn't realize in the time at this moment that like, you know, I was gonna be single too, like not 2 weeks later. So that part was not clear until something that I will talk about in the next part. And I wouldn't even say at this point that our relationship was, in my mind, necessarily on the rocks. Like there was no big fights or big arguments. Like we were about to enter Pride, which I'll talk about a little bit more, which I've kind of had an interesting relationship with it, and anyway, I digress. But I just remember this part in our time together in our group hike and meditation just making me very, very emotional. And I remember I like had to like compose myself and try really hard not to cry, because Pride was a riot led by transgender women of color, and we owe them this incredible debt. And just I have in my life come to realize how much I owe to my ancestors. And yeah, it is just, I do believe that every person, and without just again getting to, every person, when we come to this planet, we have an obligation to learn from, I'll just put it that way, learn from who we came from. So yeah, this part made me really emotional, and it was just a really great time to connect with my community, connect with the past, etc. And then immediately after, almost as though, meant to be, I had to go and lead a tour for my company in the Castro, which, as you know, is San Francisco's neighborhood, a historic tour. So it was almost as though I like on cue. So that was that. And I actually, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did have to leave the group a little early, even though I got so much. So even though I wasn't there the whole time, I just got so much out of this, and you'll see shortly what I mean by that. But that was the 31st. So the next day, June began, right? June 1st, technically, was Pride. I did a tarot spread. I've been doing my tarot as far back as 2014. Not here to convince anybody. Not here actually, honestly, really to talk about it. I'm just here to mention it very briefly as a tool. And again, I, at least going back to 2014, have recorded readings in my journals, and it's very interesting to see the cards that you see come up and what they mean. And that's all I'll say for now. I will say more in the next video, but this does bring us again to June 1st, 2024.